I stood in the doorway of what used to be our home, watching Diana pack the last of her designer clothes into a suitcase I had never seen before. Her new heels clicked against the hardwood floor with a rhythm that felt foreign, nothing like the soft shuffle of the woman I married 5 years ago. She turned to me, her freshly highlighted hair catching the afternoon light, and said the words that would replay in my mind for months. "I am out of your league now, Santiago. I deserve better." This was the same house I had mortgaged to give her the dream she claimed would complete us. 3 years earlier, she had called me her everything. I never thought the woman I built up would be the one to tear me down. Before I tell you how my own investment destroyed my marriage, let me know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments and hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe because this story about misplaced trust might just save you from repeating my mistakes. Now let me take you back to where everything started, back when I still believed love could conquer ambition. I met Diana 5 years ago at a community college in Southern California. She was studying cosmetology, working toward a certificate that would let her do what she loved. I was an IT technician for a mid-sized tech company. Nothing fancy, but stable enough to pay bills and save a little each month. Diana came from a family that had immigrated from Mexico when she was 12. Her parents worked construction and housekeeping, teaching her the value of hard work before teaching her anything else. She had 2 part-time jobs while going to school, one at a coffee shop near campus, and another doing inventory at a retail store on weekends. What drew me to her was not just her looks, though she was beautiful in that natural, unadorned way. It was her humility. She never complained about her long days, or the fact that she drove a 15-year-old sedan that made concerning noises every time she started it. When we went on our first date to a small taco place near the beach, she insisted on splitting the bill. I refused, but she smiled and said she did not want me thinking she was after my money. I laughed because I barely had any. Our relationship grew slowly, built on cheap dates and genuine conversation. We would have picnics at the park with sandwiches we made at home. She taught me how to cook her grandmother's recipes, and I helped her study for her state board exams. After long days at work, she would massage my shoulders while we watched old movies on my laptop. Those were the days when happiness did not require much, just her presence and the promise of a future we would build together. 2 years into our relationship, I proposed with a ring I had saved 6 months to buy. It was not extravagant, just a simple band with a small diamond, but Diana cried when she saw it. She said yes before I could finish my rehearsed speech. We got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at a community center. Her family cooked the food, my cousin played music from his laptop through borrowed speakers, and we danced until our feet hurt. It was perfect because it was ours. After Diana graduated from cosmetology school, she got hired at a nail salon 15 minutes from our apartment. The owner was a woman in her 50s who ran the place like a dictator. Diana would come home exhausted, her hands smelling of acetone and acrylic, complaining about how the owner kept most of the tips and paid minimum wage. Clients loved Diana. She was meticulous, creative, and genuinely kind. But all her talent meant nothing when someone else controlled her income. One night, about 8 months into her job, Diana sat me down at our small kitchen table. Her eyes had that determined look I had seen before when she decided to go back to school. "I want my own salon, Santiago," she said. "I want to be my own boss, keep my own tips, hire people, and treat them right." I reached across the table and held her hand. "Then we will make it happen," I told her. I meant every word. We spent the next several weeks researching what it would take. The numbers were daunting. Leasing a space in a decent location would cost around $3,000 a month. Equipment, supplies, business licenses, insurance, and enough capital to cover the first 6 months of operation added up to roughly $80,000. It might as well have been $1 million. We had about $12,000 in savings accumulated through 2 years of cutting every corner we could find. I started taking on freelance IT projects after my regular 9-to-5 shift. I built websites for small businesses, fixed computers for neighbors, and troubleshooted network issues for anyone who would pay. Diana picked up extra shifts at the salon and started doing nails for friends at our apartment for cash. We stopped eating out completely. I brought leftovers to work every day and canceled my gym membership. Diana stopped buying new clothes and started cutting my hair at home. Every dollar we saved went into a joint account we labeled Dream Fund. After 18 months of grinding, we had $35,000. It was progress, but not enough. The gap between what we had and what we needed felt impossible to close through saving alone. That was when I made the decision that would later haunt me. I owned a small house that I had purchased 2 years before meeting Diana. It was a modest, 2-bedroom place in a neighborhood that was slowly improving, worth about $250,000. I had built up decent equity. I went to the bank and refinanced, pulling out $65,000 against the home's value. When I told Diana what I had done, she broke down in tears. Not sad tears, but the kind that come from overwhelming gratitude. She threw her arms around me and promised she would never let me down, that this sacrifice would be worth it. We would build something together that would take care of us for the rest of our lives. I believed her because I had no reason not to. We had just over $100,000. Her dream was finally within reach. Diana's Nails and Spa opened on a bright Tuesday morning in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a sandwich shop. The location was perfect, visible from a busy street with plenty of parking. I had helped with everything. I filed the business paperwork, set up the accounting software, built a website, and ran social media ads. I installed shelves, painted accent walls, and stayed up late assembling pedicure chairs that came in 100 pieces. The first week was slow. Diana was anxious, checking the door every few minutes, worrying that we had made a terrible mistake. I kept reassuring her, reminding her that new businesses take time to catch on. I printed flyers and spent my lunch breaks handing them out at nearby offices. I posted about the salon on every local community page I could find and invited all our friends to come in for discounted services. Slowly, it started working. By the end of the second month, Diana had a steady stream of clients. Her attention to detail and warm personality turned first-time customers into regulars. Reviews started pouring in on Yelp and Google, all 5 stars, all praising her skill and the clean, welcoming atmosphere. Within 6 months, she had hired 3 nail technicians to keep up with demand. The salon was bringing in around $12,000 a month in profit after expenses. We had done it. Against all odds, Diana's dream had become a thriving reality. But success changed her in ways I did not anticipate. At first, it was small things. She started staying later at the salon, saying she needed to handle inventory or train new employees. She began paying more attention to her appearance, which I understood. She wanted to look professional, to embody the success her business represented. She got highlights in her hair, kept her nails impeccably done, and started buying clothes from stores we used to walk past without entering. When I asked about the expenses, she explained it was for the business image. "Clients trust someone who looks successful, babe," she said. It made sense, so I did not push back. But then she started buying designer handbags and expensive shoes. When I gently brought up our budget, she became defensive. "I am making my own money now, Santiago. I think I can decide how to spend it." The tone in her voice was new, sharp, in a way that made me drop the subject. Diana also became distant emotionally. She stopped asking about my day or telling me about hers beyond surface-level updates. When I suggested we go out to dinner or catch a movie like we used to, she would decline, saying she was too exhausted. I understood that running a business was draining, so I gave her space, convincing myself things would balance out once she got more comfortable with her new responsibilities. Then I started noticing a man at the salon. His name was Kyle. He was tall, fit, dressed in expensive casual clothes, and always seemed to be there when I stopped by. The first time I asked Diana about him, she introduced him as her business consultant. "He helps with marketing and expansion plans," she explained. Kyle shook my hand with a confident grip and a smile that did not reach his eyes. Something about him made my stomach tighten, but I pushed the feeling aside. Diana said she wanted to expand into a chain of salons and needed professional guidance. "You would not understand, Santiago. It is not your field," she added. That comment stung more than I wanted to admit. Over the next 2 months, Diana became a stranger. She would come home past midnight claiming she was doing inventory or handling supplier issues. Our physical relationship disappeared entirely. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she would say she was too tired or not in the mood. I felt like a roommate in my own marriage, watching the woman I loved drift further away while I stood helpless on the shore. One night I woke up around 2 in the morning and realized Diana was not in bed. I found a light on under the bathroom door and heard her voice soft and playful in a way she had not spoken to me in months. I stood outside the door and listened, guilt and desperation warring in my chest. "I cannot wait to see you tomorrow," she said, followed by a quiet laugh. "No, he is asleep." I know. My heart pounded. I knocked on the door. Diana went silent, then quickly said, "I have to go," before opening the door. Her face was flushed. When I asked who she was talking to, she claimed it was a supplier, discussing a bulk order. At 2 in the morning. I did not believe her, but I did not have proof, so I swallowed my suspicion and went back to bed staring at the ceiling until dawn. A week later, I called in sick to work. I had the flu and felt miserable, but I also saw an opportunity. Around noon, I drove to the salon, planning to ask Diana to pick up medicine on her way home. As I approached, I saw her walking out with Kyle. They were laughing comfortable with each other in a way that made my chest tighten. Kyle opened the passenger door of his BMW for her, a gesture too intimate for a business relationship. I should have confronted them right there, but something stopped me. Instead, I followed. They did not go to a restaurant. Kyle drove to an apartment complex 3 miles away. I parked down the street and watched them walk into a building together. An hour and a half later, they emerged. Diana was adjusting her hair. Kyle had his arm around her waist. I sat in my car feeling like I had been punched in the stomach, the fever I had forgotten about, suddenly roaring back. But I did not cry. I did not scream. Instead, I made a decision. I needed evidence, not just suspicions. I went home and checked our bank statements. Diana had been withdrawing large amounts of cash over the past 3 months, with vague notes like business expenses and consulting fees. I hired a private investigator, a decision that cost me $1,500, but gave me clarity. A week later, the investigator sent me a detailed report. Diana and Kyle had been seen entering his apartment 3 times that week alone. There were photographs of them kissing in his car. The investigator also discovered that Kyle was not a legitimate business consultant. He was a personal trainer who marketed himself as a lifestyle coach for salon owners, a title he had invented. Diana had paid him $15,000 from the salon's business account for services he never actually provided. One evening, I parked outside Kyle's apartment and waited. Diana arrived at 7. Lights turned on in a second-floor window. I sat there until midnight, watching shadows move behind the curtains, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. When Diana finally came out, her blouse was wrinkled. She did not see me as she got into her car and drove away. I followed her home, keeping my distance, and arrived 5 minutes after she did. She was already in the bedroom, pretending to be asleep. I spent the next 2 days gathering everything I needed. Photographs from the private investigator. Bank statements showing the transfers to Kyle. Text messages I found on our shared iPad that Diana had forgotten to delete. I printed it all out and organized it into a folder. On Saturday evening, when Diana came home late as usual, I was waiting in the living room with all the lights off. When she walked in, I turned on the lamp beside me. The folder sat on the coffee table between us. "We need to talk," I said. Diana froze her eyes, darting to the folder, then back to me. "Santiago, what is this about?" she asked, her voice cautious. I did not answer. I just opened the folder and spread the contents across the table. Photographs of her and Kyle. Bank statements highlighted in yellow. Printed text messages. Diana stared at the evidence, her face going pale. "Santiago, it is not what you think," she started, but I held up my hand. "Do not," I said quietly. "Do not insult me by lying when the truth is right there." I went through each piece of evidence methodically. The apartment visits, the $30,000 she had funneled to Kyle through various transactions, the messages where she told him she loved him. Diana sat down, and for a long moment she said nothing. Then, something shifted in her expression. The panic disappeared, replaced by something cold and defiant. She stood up and crossed her arms. "Fine," she said. "You want the truth. Yes, I am with Kyle. And honestly, Santiago, I should have done this sooner. I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. "What do you mean?" I asked. Diana laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Look at you," she said, gesturing at me dismissively. "You are just an IT guy working your 9-to-5 job. I have outgrown you. My business is successful. I am meeting successful people who have ambitions, who want more out of life. And you are still the same person you were 5 years ago. Comfortable. Mediocre." The words felt like knives. "I sacrificed everything for your dream." I shouted, my composure finally breaking. "I mortgaged my house. I worked 2 jobs so you could have this." Diana shrugged. "And I am grateful for the seed money, Santiago. I really am. But that does not mean I owe you my entire life. I have grown. I have evolved. The truth is, I am out of your league now. I deserve someone who matches my success." I stared at her, this person who looked like my wife, but spoke like a stranger. "I want a divorce," she continued. "I will buy you out of the house mortgage. You will get your money back. We can both move on." I shook my head slowly. "The house is in my name," I said. "I bought it before we were married. The business loan came from my equity, my credit. You signed papers acknowledging that." Diana waved her hand dismissively. "My lawyer will handle it. You will get what you deserve, nothing more." She walked past me toward the stairs. "I am staying at a hotel tonight. I will send someone for my things tomorrow." I watched her pack a bag, her movements quick and efficient, like she had been planning this for a while. When she walked out the door, she did not look back. I sat alone in the silence of our home, the evidence still spread across the coffee table. But instead of falling apart, I felt something else. Clarity. I pulled out my phone and called Gerald, an attorney a college friend had recommended. "I need to file for divorce," I said when he answered. "And I need to protect everything I have built." The next morning I met with Gerald in his office. He reviewed all the documents I brought, taking his time with each page. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and smiled slightly. "This is complicated, but you have leverage," he said. He explained that the house was my separate property since I owned it before marriage, but the refinancing complicated things because that money had gone into a community asset, the salon. However, because Diana had signed paperwork acknowledging the loan was specifically for her business venture, I had legal grounds to claim reimbursement. More importantly, Gerald continued, the salon itself is community property because it was established during your marriage with community funds. You are entitled to half its value. He paused. And the fact that she misappropriated funds for her affair partner, that works heavily in your favor. He advised me to file first request forensic accounting of the business and ask the court to freeze business accounts until an audit could be completed. I authorized him to move forward. 3 days later, Diana received the divorce papers at the salon. She called me immediately, her voice hysterical. "You froze my accounts. Santiago, I have payroll. I have suppliers. How could you do this?" I took a deep breath before responding, keeping my voice calm. "You should have thought about consequences before deciding I was not good enough for you. I will see you in court, Diana." Meanwhile, I had the private investigator continue looking into Kyle. What he found was illuminating. Kyle was not the successful entrepreneur he pretended to be. He owed over $50,000 in credit card debt. The BMW was leased. The apartment was a rental. Even more interesting, Kyle had a pattern. He had been involved with at least 2 other women who owned nail salons in the past 3 years. He would position himself as a consultant, gain their trust, extract money, and then disappear when the well ran dry. I compiled all of this information and gave it to Gerald. "This just gets better," he said with a grim smile. "She is not going to have a leg to stand on." The mediation session was brutal. Diana's lawyer came in aggressive, arguing that I should only receive the original mortgage amount back and nothing more. Then Gerald presented the evidence about Kyle, the financial records showing the transfers, the investigator's report detailing Kyle's history of exploiting women, photographs and bank statements laid bare. The mediator, a woman in her 60s who had probably seen everything, looked at Diana with barely concealed disgust. "Is this information accurate?" she asked. Diana tried to defend herself. "Kyle was helping my business grow," she said weakly. Gerald cut in. By taking $30,000 in so-called loans, he never repaid. By charging $15,000 for consulting services that were never rendered, Diana had no answer. Gerald continued. Furthermore, Diana's business has been appraised at approximately $450,000. My client is entitled to half of that community property, plus full reimbursement for the separate property he contributed. The numbers hung in the air. Diana's lawyer asked for a private consultation with his client. When they returned 20 minutes later, Diana looked defeated. After the session ended, Diana approached me alone. Her eyes were red. "Santiago, please," she said, her voice breaking. "If you take half the business, I will lose everything. I will have to sell the salon." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but emptiness where love used to be. "You told me you were out of my league," I said quietly. "You told me I was mediocre. Where is all that confidence now?" "I was angry," she said. "I did not mean it." I shook my head. "No, Diana. You meant every word. You just did not think there would be consequences." She grabbed my arm. "What about Kyle? Are you not going to do anything to him?" I almost laughed. "Kyle," I said, "check your phone. He blocked you 2 weeks ago when he realized you could not give him any more money." Diana pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I watched realization dawn on her face as she scrolled through her contacts and messages. Kyle had disappeared from every platform. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "He used me," she whispered. "Yes," I said, "just like you used me. The only difference is I actually loved you." In the end, Diana did not have enough liquid assets to buy out my half of the salon and reimburse my separate property contribution. The business had to be sold. A buyer offered $520,000. After paying off remaining debts, legal fees, and other expenses, there was roughly $430,000 left. I received $260,000, which included my separate property reimbursement and half of the community property value. Diana received around $170,000, but after her lawyer's fees, she was left with considerably less. The house mortgage was paid off with part of my settlement. I kept the house, the place that had started all of this, and it finally felt like mine again. The first 3 months after the divorce were finalized were difficult in ways I had not expected. It was not the money or the loss of the business that hurt. It was the betrayal, the knowledge that someone I had loved completely had seen me as nothing more than a stepping stone. I started going to therapy, something I had never considered before. My therapist helped me understand that loving someone and setting boundaries were not mutually exclusive. "You protected yourself," she told me. "That took strength, not weakness." Slowly, I began rebuilding my life. I joined a gym and started working out regularly, something I had neglected during the years of sacrifice. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with, people who reminded me of who I was before I had poured everything into someone else's dream. At work, I received a promotion. My manager told me I had been consistently exceeding expectations and deserved recognition. The irony was not lost on me. While I had been helping Diana build her business, I had also been building my own career without even realizing it. I used part of the settlement money to renovate the house. I repainted every room, replaced old furniture, and turned the spare bedroom into a home office. Each change felt like reclaiming space that had been tainted by broken promises. The house stopped being a reminder of what I had lost and became a symbol of what I had survived. About 6 months after everything was finalized, I ran into a mutual friend at a coffee shop. She told me Diana was working as a nail technician again, renting a booth at someone else's salon. She had tried to start over but could not secure financing for a new business given her recent financial history. As for Kyle, he had moved on to his next target, a woman who owned a hair salon in a nearby city. The pattern continued. I started dating again cautiously at first. Then I met Iris, a woman who worked in a different department at my company. She was a project manager, smart and independent, with a dry sense of humor that made me laugh. What struck me most about Iris was her self-sufficiency. She had her own career, her own goals, and she never once asked me for financial help. When I offered to pay for dinner on our third date, she insisted we split it just like Diana had on our first date years ago. But this time I recognized the difference. Diana's gesture had been performative, a way to appear humble. Iris genuinely believed in equality. We took things slow. I was honest with her about my past, about the divorce, and why it happened. She listened without judgment, and then said something that stayed with me. "Someone who truly loves you will not see your generosity as a weakness to exploit," she said. "They will see it as a gift to cherish." I realized then that I had learned to recognize red flags I had missed before. Entitlement, lack of gratitude, the tendency to compare partners to others as if love were a competition with winners and losers. A year after the divorce, my life looked completely different. I had invested the remaining settlement money, wisely putting a significant portion into retirement accounts and using some as a down payment on a small rental property. The passive income gave me financial security I had never had before. The house, now fully mine and renovated, felt like a home again. I was in the best physical shape of my life. And I had Iris, someone who saw me as an equal partner, not a bank account or a ladder to climb. I thought about everything that had happened, all the pain and betrayal, and realized something important. I did not regret helping Diana. That decision had revealed my character, showed me I was capable of sacrifice and commitment, but I also did not regret standing up for myself when she threw that sacrifice back in my face. Both actions defined who I was. One evening, Iris and I were sitting on my back porch watching the sunset. She asked me if I ever missed Diana. I thought about it honestly before answering. "I miss who I thought she was," I said. "But that person might never have existed." I was in love with potential, with the promise of what we could build together. I did not see that she was only interested in what I could build for her. Iris squeezed my hand. "Her loss," she said simply. "I have learned that people reveal their true selves when they get what they want." When Diana was struggling, she was humble, grateful, loving. But success stripped away the pretense and showed me someone I did not recognize. Character is not what you do when you have nothing. It is what you do when you have everything. By that measure, I had passed a test I did not know I was taking, and Diana had failed one she did not think mattered. Looking back now, I understand that the best response to betrayal is not revenge. It is building a life so fulfilling that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. Diana taught me what I did not want in a partner. She taught me to value integrity over ambition, gratitude over entitlement, and genuine connection over superficial success. Those were expensive lessons, but they were worth every penny. I still think about that moment when she told me I was out of her league, that I was mediocre. At the time, those words destroyed me. Now I see them as a gift. She freed me from a relationship built on unequal investment and false promises. She gave me permission to find someone who valued what I offered, not just what I could provide. In trying to diminish me, she actually helped me see my own worth. True success is not measured by the size of your business or the balance in your bank account. It is measured by who you remain when tested by the values you refuse to compromise, and by the people who choose to stand beside you, not because of what you can do for them, but because of who you are. By that measure, I am more successful now than Diana could ever hope to be, regardless of how many salons she might own in the future. So let me ask you something. Have you ever sacrificed for someone who later made you feel small for that sacrifice? Have you ever been told you were not good enough by someone you built up? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel, because I share more stories about overcoming betrayal and rebuilding stronger. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that your worth is not determined by how others value you. Stay strong, protect your peace, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who cannot appreciate what you bring to their lives. Take care of yourselves out there.